Hi, I'm Marilyn from Bluebird Quilt Studio in Nampa, Idaho, and today I'm going to show you how to put binding on quilts. There's plenty of different methods of doing that, but today we're going to use a double folded separate binding. I'm going to be sandwiching and putting binding on this little landscape. So in order to sandwich them, I like to use the 505 basting spray. Start by laying my batting out. And the process is the same whether it's a big quilt or a little quilt. I'm going to position my backing on it, smooth it out, lift up a portion of it. Just a little bit of spray is all we need. It's repositionable, so if I don't get it straight, I can open it back up and smooth it out. Same thing on the other side, just a little bit of spray. Spread it out. Flip it over and do exactly the same thing with my top. So I'm going to center my quilt top, smooth it all out. Same technique. Lift it up, spray, smooth it, lift, spray, and smooth. Okay. Now I have it sandwiched. The next thing that I need to do is trim off the excess of the batting and backing in order to prepare it for binding. Normally at this point I would be ready to quilt it, so we're just going to pretend that this little quilt is already quilted. I'm simply going to trim off the excess even with the edge of the top. This is a good time to square up those quilts and take care of those little bit wonky borders. Looks nice and neat and ready for binding. When I make binding, I start by cutting strips of fabric big enough to go all the way around the quilt and 2 1/4 to 2 1/2 inches wide. 2 1/4 is a nice tight fit. Some people like to use a little bit wider strip of binding, but 2 1/4 works quite well. In order to sew these together, you don't need quite this much length. I am going to sew these with a bias seam, which will help to eliminate bulk. So I'll show you here, and then I'm going to step over to the sewing machine and do it. I'm going to lay the strip underneath the sewing machine, one going east and west and the other one going north and south. If I overlap them to the side a little bit and to the top a little bit, I can sew from this corner down to this corner. Once that's sewn, it opens up and I have a bias seam, which helps to eliminate bulk when it gets wrapped around the quilt. I have one strip going left to right, the next strip facing down to me. I'm going to sew from top right to bottom left. When I get the first one sewn, I can simply take the end of this one, place it going the other direction. I want to eliminate my selvage from corner to corner. Now I'm simply going to trim off the excess at about 1/4 inch. I'm simply going to fold my binding strip in half lengthwise, matching the raw edges. Would have helped if I'd ironed it flat first. That seam opened out. You can see when it is folded how that bias seam will wrap around and eliminate the bulk. I'm going to start sewing my binding on the right side of this quilt like this. So I want a nice bias edge to start with so that I don't have a straight line. It will end up looking just like my seams that we sewed earlier. When I sew the binding to the quilt, I want the longest edge to be next to the quilt. So that's the underneath piece. I'm going to take this and fold it this way so that I have my longest piece next to the quilt. You can see that if I had folded it this direction, when I put it on, my longest piece is on the top instead of touching the quilt. So since I want the longest piece to be on this side, I'm going to turn it this way. That's going to give me a nice 45-degree angle. And then I can simply cut the excess off like so. Okay, I try not to start right next to a corner. I try to start a little bit farther down, sort of in the middle of the side. And I'm going to sew this in a 1/4 inch seam that's going to come right down here and over the top. And then I'll be sewing 2 layers at the same time.